What's going on, everybody? It's Mike Taylor, student, not for much longer, physical therapist, and today I'm going to be talking about patellar tendinopathy. I've been getting a ton of DMs about doing a video about this. I see it being discussed a lot recently on Instagram, people talking about, what they can do to, squat without knee pain, and I figured it was time for me to kind of throw my hat in the ring, kind of chime in with my take on this issue. Now, unfortunately, unlike a lot of people's takes, I think I'm probably going to disappoint you with mine. I'm not going to tell you to just, keep lifting, take this one weird trick and everything will be good. I'm gonna hit you with some real talk today, but it's the correct talk. It's what the evidence tells us is true. So before we get into how to treat it, I need to tell you what it is in the first place. So patellar tendinopathy. This is an overuse condition characterized by pain and tenderness to the patellar tendon, which connects the patella, your kneecap, to your tibia. Now, this is really common in athletes that do a lot of jumping, so people like volleyball players, basketball players, and in the case of powerlifters, people who are doing a lot of squatting. One important distinction to make is that there's a difference between a tendinitis and a tendinopathy, but I often see them being used interchangeably. A tendinitis refers to an acute inflammatory process of the tendon, emphasis being on inflammatory. A tendinopathy, on the other hand, is not an inflammatory process at all. Instead, a cycle of cellular processes occur at the tendon, resulting in disruption of collagen and kind of disrepair of that tendon in response to loading. Somewhere in all of that weird process, the tendon gets painful. So what do we do about this pain? Now, here's a hot take. If your training and form is not perfectly dialed in, that is 100% the first place you need to start. I see lifters on Instagram and on social media all the time squatting very frequently, squatting with very high loads, squatting with a lot of volume. They claim that it's within their ability to recover, but then they also wonder what can they do to make their knees not hurt when they do it.
I'm afraid I've got some bad news.
Well, I don't know. Probably not doing something that you're doing. You need to adjust your training, you need to adjust your technique. That is the first thing that you need to address when it comes to resolving this sort of pain. On the other hand, I do understand that to become an elite lifter, it does take some sacrifice. So, I'm not necessarily saying you have to stop squatting that way. What I am saying is that you may just need to recognize that there's gonna be a trade-off here. To be able to squat the way you want to, and with that sort of like volume and intensity, you may have to just sort of deal with the pain when it comes. The positive thing though is that with a tendinopathy, short of a superhuman effort on your part, I think you'd be pretty unlikely to do any serious damage to your knee from continuing to squat through that sort of pain. However, I do think eventually it's going to end up limiting you in one way or another, so you might as well just get to work now getting it better. So let's say you want to address the actual issue at hand here and not just put a band-aid on it. I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you. Here's the plan. First of all, any lifting that you're doing, any aggravating activities that's kind of causing an increase in pain, you gotta do some modification to your activities. This does not mean that I'm telling you to stop training, but what I'm gonna recommend is that you kind of do some modification or substitution so that you can continue to train without just continuously flaring yourself up. So for people who have pain with the squat, I would recommend playing around with different bar settings, so doing more of a high bar or a low bar, depending on you, and also, most importantly, modifying the tempo. So kind of slowing the tempo down or doing pauses at certain points can help with reducing pain because it's going to kind of cause you to have to limit the amount of load that you're using. Put the squat on maintenance mode, continue doing it in a way that you're able to, but you need to stop doing this balls to the wall training style that's kind of gotten you in this mess in the first place. So once we've stopped adding to the problem, the next thing we have to do is we have to actually address the issues at the tendon itself. And the way that we do this is by methodically and systematically applying increasing amounts of stress over time to help increase the strength of the tendon, to help improve tendon repair, to help improve collagen quality on the tendon itself. So now I'm going to go through a series of exercises that you can utilize to help you going from your current state right now, pain with squatting, to ultimately, hopefully, squatting without pain. So tendinopathy rehab is really a game of symptom modification. It's going to take a conscious effort on your part to keep track of the way that your knee is feeling in response to exercise, because this is how you will gauge the way you will progress through rehab. So before we get to any of the exercises at all, I just want to show you a simple test that you're going to do every single day to keep track of your symptoms. So this test is a single leg heel elevated or decline squat. So you're going to stand up with your heel elevated on the affected side. I wear some Olympic lifting shoes, my heel elevated, and I also have my heel placed on a 45-pound weight plate to help further elevate my heel. You're going to keep your torso upright the entire time, and what you'll do then is you're going to bend at the knee until you reach about 90 degrees of knee flexion or until pain limits you. Once you've done that, I want you then to record in writing your pain rating for that movement on a scale from 0 being no pain at all to 10 being the most pain imaginable. Now this movement puts a lot of stress on the patellar tendon, so I wouldn't be surprised if it hurts you, but that's why we use it as an assessment tool. Because the thing is, if we keep track of your pain with this movement, like the most provocative movement imaginable, once you're able to do that without pain, it can be reasonably inferred that you're gonna be able to do your squatting, any other activities that were previously bugging you without pain as well. So I really can't emphasize enough that this is a crucial part of doing this progression correctly. So you need to do this every single day, ideally at about the same time of day for maximum consistency, and you need to record your pain ratings every single day. This is how you're going to gauge your progress going forward. So now we can move on to the exercises. In stage 1, the exercises that we're gonna be using isometrics to load the tendon. And the thing is, isometrics generally have been found to be more tolerable for most people who are dealing with a lot of pain. So for those of you who are dealing with a lot of pain, you're very irritable, it doesn't take much to set you off, I would recommend doing a wall squat for this exercise. And to properly perform the wall squat, what you'll do is you'll stand with your back placed against a wall, feet about a foot or so out in front of you, shoulder width apart, and then what you're gonna do is you're going to slide down until you reach between 70 and 90 degrees of knee flexion, or until pain limits you. At that point, you're going to hold that position for 45 seconds. You'll then repeat it 5 times, and I want you to perform that 2 to 3 times per day. If that exercise is very tolerable, if it's too easy for you, a good progression would be the Spanish squat, in which you're gonna put a heavy band or a strap around the backs of your knees, and you're gonna hold that same squat position with your shins fairly vertical for 45 seconds, 5 times, 2 to 3 times per day. So that's stage 1. The criteria to progress onto stage 2 is that you need to be able to do that single leg squat exercise without your pain going up above a 3 out of 10. So this is why it's important to keep track. If you're just doing it in your head, it's gonna be hard to tell when you're actually at the point that you can move on. So once you're able to do that single leg squat without your pain going up above a 3 out of 10, at that point we'll move on to stage 2. And in stage 2, it's gonna be a lot of those single leg squats, but with a slight twist. Instead of doing it as previously described, what you'll be doing is doing a lot of repetitions and at a very slow eccentric tempo, about 3 to 5 seconds on the way down. So a couple of key points here. This is not supposed to be a big quad strength builder, so really I don't care if you use one leg to come back up or 2 legs. The point is I want you to really load and control that knee for 3 to 5 seconds on the way down. You're gonna do 4 sets of 15 reps, and I want you to do that every other day. Big thing to take note of here is that this is probably going to be painful. This is a very provocative position, and you're doing a lot of reps, you're spending a lot of time in that range, and I just need you to know that is okay to a point. However, if your pain is going up above like a 6 out of 10, if you're like 7, 8 out of 10, that means that you need to dial it back a little bit, go spend some more time in phase 1. Additionally, if your pain stays elevated from one session to the next session 48 hours later, if your pain has not returned to baseline, that's another sign that the load is not tolerable at that point. You need to spend some more time kind of acclimating to that load before you can progress further. So another thing here, the key is loading. If you're doing it with just your body weight and it's too easy, well then you need to load it more. So you can either hold a weight plate in front of you, or you can use a loaded backpack, anything to put some more stress through that tendon. If it's too hard, what you can do is either spend more time in phase 1, or you could also potentially hold on to either like a dowel or like a squat rack to kind of help with balance and to help with just sort of offloading the parts that are most painful, the most difficult for you. So like I said, you're gonna do that every other day, and on those off days, I want you to go back to doing the phase 1 exercise. So the criteria to then progress on to stage 3 is that you should be able to not only have your single leg squat test be below a 3 out of 10, but doing the exercises alone, even with maximum load, should not exceed a 3 out of 10. So if you're still dealing with 5 out of 10 pain, means that you still need to spend some more time doing stage 2 before you progress to stage 3. And so stage 3 is an interesting one. In stage 3, what we're gonna focus on is plyometric training, because we need to focus on sort of returning the ability to transmit energy at a high rate, a high speed through that patellar tendon, which is important for athletes, like basketball players and volleyball players who need to do a lot of jumping, a lot of quick changes of directions. I was thinking about it, and for most powerlifters, I'd probably say it's not crucial to do this stage, but I don't think it would hurt you either, especially for those of us who do, a very fast eccentric to really maximize that stretch shortening cycle, and especially for Olympic weightlifters who are dealing with this as well. So your plyometric or stage 3 training is going to occur every 3rd day, so about 2 times a week or so. There's a lot of ways that you could modify the plyos that you'll be using, so I'm not going to be super specific, but one example protocol that I came up with that I think would be reasonable for most powerlifters would be to do a series of hops followed by one big jump with a very stuck landing. So what you'll do is you'll hop 4 times with minimal ground contact time between hop, then take one big jump and then quiet landing. So what's happening here is you're loading that tendon eccentrically, just like with the stage 2 exercises, but it's more functional for people who are doing things like jumping and cutting or anything like that. So for powerlifters, again, tough to say if it's really going to be really worth it, but I don't think it would hurt you either. Same deal, progression on to stage 4, which is our final return to sport, is that you should be able to do these without pain exceeding that 3 out of 10 level. And then finally, you've come this far where it's stage 4, return to sport. The only thing really left to do here is to gradually increase your load with your squatting, with your other activities, until you're back to where you were before. I would recommend continuing to use that single leg squat tool to assess your progress. So if you're going way above a 3 out of 10, means that you might have gone too far too fast and you need to dial it back a little bit. If you're having above 3 of 10 pain when you're squatting, same deal. And so what I would recommend is not exceeding greater than 10% per week jumps in load or intensity or in volume, anything like that. 10% is a fairly safe limit, but for some people you may even need to do 5, for some even like 1 to 3%. It all depends on the individual. And so the evidence does tell us that it's important to continue doing some maintenance exercises from stage 2 about 1 to 2 times per week once we've even gone back to our normal training. That could be some slow eccentric single leg squats, it could be some split squats. They even talk about leg press and leg extensions as well. And so one other thing I want to speak on here is that people often will ask me, should I ice it? Should I put heat on it? What, should I take ibuprofen? Should I take this weird, some oil that somebody's selling that's supposed to help with inflammation? Well, so here's my answer. Remember back at the beginning of the video, I talked about, what a tendinopathy is and what it isn't. And what it isn't is it is not an inflammatory process. You can do whatever you want to help with modifying your pain so that you can, do the exercises better, so that you can do things with less pain, less inhibition. However, you're not going to be doing anything to reduce inflammation because inflammation is not the problem. So I would say do things that help you do the exercises more, that help you train better, but you don't need to do anything to help with inflammation because there is none. Remember to put the focus on the big things. You can add in the little things to help it out. That's not going to be what gets you better. What's going to get you better is doing these exercises and doing them well. So if there's one way that you could sabotage your progress with this, it would be by not being realistic with your expectations and by pushing too far too fast. And that's something that I do see a lot of times. People try to do these exercises for a week and then they're like, I'm ready to train again. That's not what the evidence tells us. The evidence tells us that it could take several weeks, even sometimes several months, for things to feel perfectly good again. That's just going to be kind of the way it is. You can't trick your body into being pain-free. You can't trick your body into healing a tendinopathy. That's not how it works. What works is consistency. What works is patience. What works is progressive overload. This is nothing different than just lifting weights. You can't expect to, improve your max by 20% overnight. You can't expect to improve your tendinopathy by 20% overnight as well. So I want to thank everybody for watching. It is hot in my garage right now. I'm sweating for y'all, but I just hope this video has been helpful for you. I hope this helps some of you get back to squatting without as much pain. I hope it's been maybe a reality check for others. I'm going to be putting up a separate text-based post or like an infographic with the training program that I'm talking about here, so you don't have to glean all this information from the video itself. So be on the lookout for that. And as always, guys, hit me up with any further questions, comments you may have. As always, happy training.